Hey, welcome back to the Gaming Effect. I'm your co-host Alex, aka Soldier First Class.
And I am Corey, aka Dookie03.
And we are back with another episode of the Gaming Effect, episode 17 to be specific. And we're going to be talking about side quest, mini games, and post-game content today. And that seems pretty relevant considering that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is out, and there's been a lot of talk about the mini games and the distractions and everything else in the game. So we're going to be talking about some old school side quests and stuff like that, how they used to be handled, and how they're handled now. So
the best and worst
yeah.
of what games had to offer for like side content and stuff, basically.
So over the years there's been a lot of side quests, a lot of side content, a lot of post game. And so we're going to dive right into that later on in the episode. But anyway, guys, want to thank you for all the support lately. I know episodes have been kind of sporadic. I've been into doing YouTube videos again and was streaming my playthrough of Rebirth and all that. So we kind of got a little sidetracked, took a little side quest with the Gaming Effect. And we're back and going to be making the episode today. And hopefully get some more episodes out within the next couple weeks and such.
I think it worked out. The timing worked out good though, because you kind of got busy at the same time I did.
Yeah.
So
and your kickboxing tournaments and stuff like that kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It all kind of worked out at the same time. So.
Right. So anyway, guys, don't forget we are on Spotify, iTunes, and my YouTube channel. We are no longer on SoundCloud. Not that anybody listened there anyway, but
that one guy is just devastated.
Yeah. The bot account that was liking
the Russian bot.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, don't forget to rate the podcast on all platforms and share wherever you feel like sharing on social media. And that's about it. So what have we been playing / excited for? I will go first because my list has been a little short. I've been watching Outlaw Star recently to prepare for this video I'm working on, and so I haven't really been playing much after I finished Rebirth. I put 315 hours into it and ended up with the platinum. Yeah, it's a lot. Ended up with the platinum on Rebirth, so that was what I was playing. I started Stellar Blade, but
I was going to ask you if you were going to play that game.
Yeah, I started it. I don't really like it.
What?
I know, man. I figured action game, hot women, great music, everything. I thought it was going to be the perfect storm of what I was going to enjoy about it, and I kind of feel like it's a little mid, to be honest. I don't...
Have you tried going up and down a rope?
Yes, I have.
Because I've seen footage of that, and it looks quite exciting.
It's only satisfying the first 70 times you do it.
I thought you say the first 70 minutes.
No. Well, I mean, same difference. If one rope climb is a minute, then... So, so I've played probably 4 to 5 hours of the game, and I don't know, I'm just not really vibing with it, I guess, but I do have my backer copy of Eowyn Chronicles that I need to get into.
Yeah, I've heard that's been good.
Yeah, so I haven't really been playing mini games lately, but... yeah, so I don't know. I'm thinking about also getting Persona 3 Reloaded and playing that because I've played both Persona 4 Golden and 5 Royal. So I'm thinking about getting that as well. There's a few games out there that I'm kind of looking at. Dawn Trail's coming out in July.
Oh, I thought that was already out. I thought that had been out already.
No, it comes out in July. But also... Shadow of the Erdtree comes out in June, so I'm really excited for that too. So,
is that an Elden Ring expansion?
Yeah, that's the expansion for Elden Ring, and it's gonna be fucking huge, dude. And I can't wait. I'm really excited for that. So I guess if there's one thing that I'm super excited for, it's definitely it'd be Shadow of the Erdtree.
So, is this the first expansion they've released, or I thought they did another one already?
Nope, that's it.
That was the first.
The only thing they really did
was a whole different area, or
yes.
How are they doing it? Oh, okay.
So, basically the way they've done all the other DLCs and stuff, it's kind of like an area that's in the game already, or not necessarily an area that's in the game already, but it's a location in the game
Okay.
that takes you to that spot. Like for I think it was Dark Souls 3, the Ashes of Ariandel were the location to get there was in the game,
I see what you mean.
but you couldn't get there without the DLC.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that in the games before.
Yeah, so you just go to an old area basically to get to the DLC.
Yeah.
In Shadow of the Erdtree, though, you have to have defeated Moog, which is like a side boss that you don't have to fight. It's worth your time to do so because there's like a huge grind spot in his area. And once you beat him, there's a cocoon in the back, and one of the demigods from the game is in that cocoon, and then that takes you to the DLC. And it's always been kind of speculated and theorized that that would be the case. Like that's how you get to the DLC when it comes out, because it's like kind of an important character that we haven't really explored yet. So we're gonna explore that in the DLC. But it's gonna be huge.
What's the cost of the DLC?
I believe 40.
Ooh, that's steep.
But I bought the collector's edition because I'm horrible, and that was quite a bit more.
Yeah, but I mean, if you love it, right?
Right. Well, and the thing is, like, if this were like a DLC that was like a couple hours of gameplay and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't pay the $40 for it or whatever. I don't even remember what it is exactly. I think it's 40, but I could be wrong. But for me, I've played all of the DLC for all of the Dark Souls, the SoulsBorne games and everything. Like, their DLC is typically better than the base game. Like, that's how good it is. Good. Like, Bloodborne's The Old Hunters DLC was fucking amazing. And it added a huge, huge expansion to the game. So I can imagine that an open world game like Elden Ring is going to get a massive fucking expansion.
Yeah, it will be.
So I think they said they've added 10 bosses, some new fighting styles, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a massive game, or a massive expansion, I should say.
Yeah. My style cannot be blocked. Like Zuckerberg.
There's a hand-to-hand combat style.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Zuckerberg on South Park. No one can block my style.
So what have you been playing / excited for?
So I just finished, like, literally last night on stream, my first ever playthrough of Phantasy Star 4, and fuck, it was so good, man. I definitely am glad that I had played Phantasy Star 1 before it. I tried playing 2 and it was really bad. I'll probably circle back to 3 after I finish Final Fantasy 3 and Dragon Quest 3. But yeah, no, Phantasy Star 4 was really good, man. Like it's a shame that it's so like it's like a hidden gem, which like I feel like it shouldn't be. Like I feel like it should be on the same pedestal as like Final Fantasy 4 and 6. Kinda.
Really?
Yeah. Like it was really good.
So what made you play? Because I know from past experience, you're very much like a sequential guy. Like you play.
Yeah, I almost always have to play them in order.
Right. What made you jump from 2 to 4?
Because 2 is really fucking bad. Like one of the worst JRPGs I ever played. And I heard online that 3 wasn't, like, a lot of people don't like 3 also. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to like start 2 games and quit back to back. So I was like, I'm just going to go straight into 4. And a lot of people said that 3 doesn't have as many like connections to 4 as like 1 and 2 do. So
yeah.
So I was like, I'm so glad I played the first one, because every time, like, the first one is referenced like a decent amount in it, and every time they would reference it, I'd be like, oh, that's Alice from fucking the first game. And
so
like,
they do like really connect then.
Oh yeah, so the whole when I say series, I just mean 1 to 4, because like I believe Phantasy Star like Online and Phantasy Star Universe and those take place in a different like galaxy or system.
Okay.
But the 1 to 4 all take place in the same the Algo system, and there's like 3 planets, and one of them gets destroyed. I think after 2, I think at the end of 2, one of the planets gets destroyed. But like Dude, oh my god, like, the first Phantasy Star, I'm a big, like, Master System guy, and
No, you don't say.
yeah, but I never got around to playing Phantasy Star. So, I got it on the Switch because it is a, like, maze-y game, and I generally don't like mazes, but it's, like, one of those old school JRPGs that are, like, first person when you're in the dungeons, and you're, like, going through, like, the dungeon, and it's, like, fucking hallways and stuff,
Oh, it's
and,
kind of
like
like Doom then?
kind of, but, like, a lot more basic movement-wise, right? And, yeah, it's like one of those style, like those dungeon crawlery almost like, first person games, JRPGs. But the battles are turn-based, and when you're, like, outside of a dungeon, it's like Final Fantasy where you're, like, on the world map and you get random encounters that way and stuff. But it was, like, the craziest thing is, like, how like, the Master System had a better variety of, like, color and sound than the, I don't know if sound, but definitely had a better variety of color than the NES did. So, it's crazy because the original Phantasy Star came out 2 weeks after Final Fantasy did in Japan, and looks, like, so much better. Like, visually, it looks like it would be, like, maybe an early Super Nintendo game. Like, it looks really good visually. Um, and then, like, the combat, like, all the monsters look really good, and, like, you go between, like, different planets and stuff, which was completely unheard of at that time, right? Like, in a JRPG, like, going to, like, other planets and explore and these all these planets have, like, towns on them and stuff, you know what I mean? It's not like you go to this planet, fight a boss, and then you come back. It's like all these planets are like there's 3 planets, and they're all, like, developed with towns and communities and their own story and stuff. And it was just it blew my mind that JRPG from that era could be so good. And then, so anyways, when I was playing so I wanted to play 2, obviously, because the first one was so good, and then I played 2, and I was like, "Wow, this is fucking hot garbage." And, and then I was like, "Man, like, I really wanna play these games." And I think the reason why that, Phantasy Star 4 is a hidden gem is because 2 sucked so much, and a lot of people didn't like 3, right? So it's like, why are you gonna give it another chance as
Right.
somebody that has a gen? Because 2, 3, and 4 were all on the Genesis. So it's like, okay, you grabbed 2 and it was fucking rough ski. And then you grabbed 3, and, like, a lot of people say they don't like 3. So then, like, I could see a lot of people not picking up 4, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
why it's a hidden gem. But honestly, you guys, if you are okay with, like, harder, like, old school kind of JRPGs, definitely pick up Fantasy Star 1. Play the Switch version because it has self-filling maps in the dungeons. So as you're, like, working your way through the maze, it'll, like, kind of show on the map where you've been and stuff. And then get Fantasy Star 4 because it was really really good. But yeah, we finished that. The ending was fantastic. Everything about it was, like, really really well done. I've been like reading a lot of comics and stuff too because, like, X-Men 97 came out, and, like, basically when the first episode dropped, I watched it because I was, like, a big X-Men fan when I was, like, a kid,
Mhm.
and I wasn't like an X-Men comic reader, but I read a lot of, like, X Factor comics. I was like the second X Factor team was, like, my favorite fucking comic art, like, era ever. Like, I just love it so much. I'm a big Peter David fan, and he was, like, the writer at that time. Um, and anyways, so oh, and in X-Men 97, there's been, like, 2 cameos of the second X Factor team, so I'm, like, secretly hoping that they do, like, an X Factor series, but I know they won't because it's not, like, a very, like, popular group, really, when it comes to, like, the comics. But yeah, so X-Men 97 is basically the best fucking show ever made. It's so fucking good, dude.
I've
It's
heard really good things, and I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Did you watch, like, the cartoons back in the day, like the
Yeah.
original animated
Yeah.
series?
Yeah, like X-Men, Spider-Man, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but, this last episode, and this will be, like, I guess a week ago now, right? Because
Is
these
there a
usually go up
crossover?
on the Wednesday. Uh, Spider-Man makes a tiny 90s Spider-Man, like, 90s cartoon Spider-Man
Yeah.
makes a tiny, tiny cameo in it.
Okay, yeah,
And
I
and
figured.
the guys at Disney are, like, in talks of like, hey, we should maybe do like continue the 90s Spider-Man series. That I think I like that even more than the X-Men series back then. But X-Men 97 is better, even better than the fucking original animated series.
Really?
It's so good, dude. It's so good. Episode 5 had me in fucking tears. Like, it is like incredible. Unbelievably good, man.
I'll have to check it out.
This past week one, holy fuck, was it good.
I've heard Fallout is really good too.
Yeah, I heard Fallout's really good too. I think I'm gonna watch that because I'm not really like a show watcher. Like, I don't watch a lot of shows.
I'm the same way.
So I think after X-Men 97, after the because there's only like 2 episodes left before the season's over, and I think they've renewed it for 3 seasons now. But anyways, there's like a huge gap between that and I think either Star Trek Strange New Worlds or Star Trek Lower Decks, which would be like the only other shows I would really watch. There's like a huge gap there, so I think I'm gonna watch the Fallout show after this.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned Star Trek, because as much of a Star Trek fan as you are, you should totally watch Outlaw Star.
Dude, I tried and I hated it. I didn't hate it. I just
watch it again. Watch it again. Watch the uncensored version. I promise you.
Do it.
It is the creator, Ito. He literally was like, he did an interview where he said that Star Trek and Star Wars were his 2 biggest inspirations, and he always writes as if he would think how they would do the show is how he writes. And Takahiko Ito is really good, so
yeah, I'll have to see if it's on like a streaming service here. I might, but I don't really want to download it because I remember not liking it. I also watched it right after Cowboy Bebop, and I was like,
yeah, watch it with
not as good.
Watch it without blinders on. It's really good. But yeah,
check out fucking anyone watching this or listening to this. If you haven't watched X-Men 97 yet, like, holy fuck, you're missing out big time.
Yeah, there's three shows right now I want to watch. Shogun is one. I've heard really good things about it.
It's like a remake of that like 80s Shogun, I think.
And then I want to watch X-Men 97 and I want to watch Fallout.
My buddy said Shogun was good.
But like you said, I'm not much of a fucking show watcher anymore.
Yeah.
I used to watch shows all the time, and then I started doing YouTube and then started really gaming really heavy again, and
real hardcore gamer.
And funny that I'm filming in my basement. But
me too, actually.
Hey, at least it's not our mom's basements, right?
Yeah, we own our basements, bitch.
Yeah, we bought them bitches. Anyway, so what the fuck? Anyway, did I just smack my fucking microphone again?
Yeah, it wasn't that loud though, actually.
So that's surprising. Usually it's fucking like a goddamn tornado going off in this fucking room.
Dude, my buddy Mike, aka DG Online, he's got like a microphone that like the microphone stand like clips onto his desk, like his computer desk, and then like hangs or whatever, so that it's like ideally it's so that you're not like bumping the stand and stuff.
That's what this one is.
Yeah. But
it's on
every time he sits his fucking coffee cup down, it's like boom, like the loudest fucking. And it's
I know.
Dude. So it's like it's way louder than just having a regular stand like I do.
Yeah. So I guess since we've gotten through that already, let's go ahead with the. Well, we really have not gone on a whole lot of tangents. Well, yeah, actually, we kind of have. Whatever. Fuck it.
The best tangents.
So, main topic. Side quests, mini games, post-game content. You picked this topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and let you go first.
Yeah, let's start with side quests.
Okay.
All right. So I fully intended on like writing down a bunch of side quests, and I didn't get to it. But
yeah, I didn't either.
Neither did I. But the first one that always comes to mind for like really good side quests.
Actually, before you start, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
How do you prefer your side quests to be handled? Do you want them naturally occurring? Or do you prefer them to be like on a list that you can pick and choose which ones you want to do?
I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean, but like.
So you know how? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Perfect example. Okay, Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
the side quest to discover like the
Oh,
backgrounds
I
of each
think I
character.
know what you mean. Like accepting them from a list, like
Well,
the
okay.
like the guild in Final Fantasy 12 versus.
No.
Oh,
More
okay.
like, okay, you know how in Chrono Trigger when you're doing the side quest for the characters
Yeah,
and you learn about like Frog's background, his friend,
yeah,
how he turned into Frog, like, and then like you finally put his friend to rest or whatever once you
yeah,
finish the quest. And you don't have to do that. That literally is something that you just discover that you can
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Or do you prefer like a system where kind of like Assassin's Creed where you have this list of side quests you can do and then you just pick and choose?
Like a job board kind of thing.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, I definitely prefer not the job board one. Like the one where like you get it by like talking to people in the towns and stuff.
Yeah, because I feel
Just
like
interacting.
sometimes the naturally occurring side quests feel more
Natural. Like they're
natural.
just, yeah, they're just, and like fluid. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? And they fit they fit the worlds a lot better
It
too.
rewards you for exploration. Now, I don't
Yeah.
mind like how Witcher 3 did it, where it was on like a notice board and people were hiring you for jobs.
Yeah. See,
Um,
I like that way if it's going to be like bounty hunts. Like if it's like find this
right.
like boss that won't appear unless you take this quest.
Like 12.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah.
If it's as long as it's just like bounty hunts, I don't mind it. But if it's like, hey, this guy needs help with this, and then you like accept it, and then you have to go talk to that fucker like in another town, I hate that shit.
See, I like how Rebirth did it, where it was a notice board and people were hiring you for jobs, but they were only in that region.
Oh, okay.
So you weren't like taking a side quest and having to go to the grasslands, or taking a quest in the grasslands and having to go to the Nebel region. Like you were,
Right.
all of your side quests were regionally located.
I hated so I want to talk about like how good the side quests are in most of the Xenoblade like series, but Xenoblade 1's side quests were really bad. Like there were like an infinite amount of them, and you like right at the start of the game you have like 20 to 50 available like right away, and it's like I'm the kind of guy that if you throw that shit at me, I'm going to just like start doing them until
I
somebody says,
know,
"Dude,
same.
don't do them." And like, and they give you nothing. That's the worst, dude. Nothing pisses me off more than a side quest that's like a fetch quest, like meaningless fetch quest. Like, hey, fucking perfect example, Final Fantasy 14. Hey, give this fucking pretzel to the guards. Like, fuck off. And then like, oh my god, that game used to piss me off so much, man. And just like shit like that, where it's like you first of all you have to go to a fucking notice board, and then you have to go to this guy, talk to him, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, the guards are a little hungry. Go talk to the pretzel lady. She can make some pretzels and then come back." So then you go to the fucking pretzel lady. The pretzel lady possibly gives you another fucking segment of a fetch quest. Oh, I can't finish my pretzels without this penis salt. Go punch some bears in the woods and shave the salt off their penis. So you do that, and then you come back. You give her the penis salt. She uses the penis salt to drizzle it on the pretzels. I'm spitting everywhere here. Drizzles the penis salt on the pretzels, and then you got to go to the fucking guards. And then the worst part was you go to like the guard guy that gave you the quest, and he's like, "Yeah, give it to the guards." So then you have to walk into the guards. Fuck me, dude. I hate that shit so much. And the only thing that's worse is when that's like mandatory for like to continue the story, and then it's like, fuck this game big time when it pulls stuff like that.
Dragon
And that's
Quest
why I
X does
haven't
that
made
a
it
little
very
bit.
far. What's that?
I said Dragon Quest X does that a little bit.
Yeah, but Dragon Quest X, most of it, like it's also like an fairly early
Right.
MMO.
Well, and
And
honestly,
then,
like, to be
and
honest,
most of it's like optional stuff,
that's just how MMOs are in general anyway.
especially at that time period.
Right.
Though. Like I haven't played Final Fantasy 11 really, but I imagine it's chock full of that shit.
Probably.
Yeah. But that's, yeah, MMOs were bad for that. I don't think MMOs were really bad for and it's not so much anymore. Like Final Fantasy X or Dragon Quest X has some quests like this, but the drop rate's like really good. But when a MMO will give you a side quest where it's like fight these bears and until they drop 10
Yeah.
penis salts. And then why do I keep going back to this?
I don't
And
know.
then
You have an
and then-
unhealthy obsession with penis salt, apparently.
and then like you could fight like infinite bears and get like one drop. Like that's the worst. What?
The fact that you said drop
Oh.
just cracked me up. Even
but,
though
like,
I know what you
know
meant.
what I mean? Like
I know what you
MMOs
meant, but it's still funny that you used the term
Oh,
drop.
drop! Oh my god! I didn't get it.
Now you do.
Gross. But you know what I mean, man?
I
Like,
promise we're not high.
But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you could fight an infinite amount and not get the drop you need. The old drippy. Drippy dewy. Anyways, back on topic. But yeah,
God damn
no,
it.
I definitely prefer like walking around town. Every time I get to a new town, talking to everybody, and then if someone's like, I also prefer like if they've got like Dragon Quest X, and a lot of the Dragon Quest games do this, where their name will be purple instead of white.
Right.
So then you're like, oh, okay, this guy's got a side quest for me, right?
Right.
And then the reason I was confused when you said list is like most of the, especially like newer Dragon Quest games, I think from 9 and on, maybe 8 had it, I don't remember. But when you accept a quest, it gets added to a list, so you can always like check back.
Right.
thing.
No.
Yeah.
I meant
But I know
more
what you mean
like
now.
I meant more like, okay, Assassin's Creed, the more recent ones give you like a list.
Yeah. I don't like that because it seems like not immersive sometimes, because sometimes it's just like in the air, it's in your menu. Like it's not even at least a mess, like a job board. They suck kind of, but at least it's something that's like tangible in the game.
Part of the world, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely prefer them to be naturally occurring, but added to a list so you can check up on them and
Right.
see where you left off. Because a lot of times you're not back in that area for a while, and then when you come back, you can continue it or something like that.
Mhm.
Like I've done that like quite a bit.
Rebirth does it too. Like the same quests that are on the board can also be found by talking to the people that start them.
So the board's more like a directory than it is like a you have to accept this. Like you could, if you were in that area, you could just talk to that.
So
guy
let's say there's one where you have to investigate a disturbance at a farm, and you can either take it on the notice board and go to the farm, or you can find the farm naturally, and the farmer will talk to you about that disturbance, and then you get the quest, and then you use your chocobo to sniff out the scent of this wolf that's been attacking the livestock.
Yeah.
And it's like a higher.
I think that's the only one I've actually seen you do.
It's like a really high level wolf. It's not like a normal one. It's not just like a go here and kill like a pack of wolves. It's like an actual. It's kind of like a boss fight.
It's like a side quest boss fight. Yeah,
right.
It's specifically made for that side quest.
Right. And I thought that it was really well done. It kind of was like, okay, I can either go to the town message board, take the quests I want, or if I'm out in the world exploring, I can find it and be like, oh, cool, a side quest. You know, it's not it's not made
you don't
obvious.
Have to go to the message board in order to
The only thing the message board really does is gives you a map marker that tells you exactly where the quest is, as opposed to if you just
that's what I mean. It's more like a directory than it is
right.
Like you have to come here to start the quest.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I don't like, and like it's gonna sound like I don't know what the word is when you self-contradictory, but a lot of times, because I love JRPGs, and in JRPGs you're gonna get a ton of it where like you're going town to town and this kid's puppy is missing, right? So you find the puppy and it's like sounds like the lamest quest ever, but whatever, you made the kid happy, it was an easy side quest to do, right? But I hate when it's like, and the worst game for this is Red Dead Redemption, when you're like this hardened fucking, you're supposed to be like this hardened gruff like ex-convict guy, and you're you're like helping this nice old lady like train her horses. Like, you know what I mean? I always hate when it kind of like breaks character, like the side quests. I don't like that when that happens in games. And it's usually only games like Red Dead Redemption and stuff where it's like you're supposed to be this like badass like hard dude, and you're like helping like little kids find the balloon out of a tree and stuff like that. Like
where it's kind of character breaking.
Yeah, I hate when that shit happens. Or like if they're gonna do it, it should be like yeah, whatever, kid. Like, you know what I mean? Instead of
he gets the balloon and just pops it in front of him.
Yeah. Instead of just like being like, I'd be happy to help. Like, I don't know. That shit, it kind of breaks immersion to me when that stuff happens.
Yeah.
I know, like when I like first played the Yakuza games, it bothered me at first, and then I was like, oh, that's just how these games are. Like, they don't take themselves seriously. Right?
Well,
so
and
that's different.
Kiryu is like very obviously like you
a helpful
eventually learn.
guy.
Well, he's a helpful guy, but you also learn like through the story and stuff that he loves kids and he loves.
Yeah.
He is kind of a genuinely good guy, even though he is a Yakuza member.
Yeah. And the game doesn't take itself too seriously.
Right.
Whereas like Red Dead Redemption is like, it's a fairly like serious game.
Right. It's a Wild West game.
Yeah. That shit always bugs me though, when it's like you're supposed to be like this gruff like outlaw, and you're like planting flowers for like an old lady.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like excellent fucking side quests, I gotta go like it's gotta be either like Chrono Trigger or like Xenoblade Chronicles like 2 and 3. Probably 3, honestly. Would be up there for like my second favorite. The Dragon Quest games have a lot of good side quests, but I feel like because of how the Dragon Quest stories are told, the main story kind of feels like side quests, because like every town has its own like little story, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to pinpoint like a strong, like single out a strong side quest in Dragon Quest, because all of this little stories feel like little side quests. But when it comes to Chrono Trigger, my favorite has always been the one where, and I can't remember if you go back to the past or if it's just a flashback, but when you have to like save Luca's mom from that machine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That one's fucking crazy, dude.
I like the Robo one.
When he's like tending to that field.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go back and he's like all like fucked up and stuff because he made that forest, but he brought the forest back, but he's like all fucked up because he spent his whole life basically like making that forest come back and stuff like that. That was a good one too. They're all like, and you mentioned earlier that frog one where you go to that castle and then you learn about and you find like his friend's grave, and like you bring like his favorite drink to his grave and stuff. That's a Japanese thing, by the way. If like one of your loved ones passes away and you go to visit their grave, you always like bring their favorite drink and you leave it on their grave. Like if you walk through a Japanese graveyard, there'll be like cups of sake on like all the graves, pretty much.
Oh, nice.
Because people will be like, oh, this was his favorite drink. So they always, if they come to visit the gravesite, they'll always like leave that on their gravestone kind of thing. But
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's like where that when he because what he has to bring like that his buddy's favorite like soda or drink or something, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember, but I think so.
But that was a really good one. And then yeah, I feel like all the Chrono Trigger ones are really well done.
Yeah, all the character side quests are really good, and they're naturally occurring. You never actually have to do them.
Yeah, there's a lot too, like especially near the latter half of the game. Like,
well, every character has one.
Yeah,
and the crazy part is with Chrono Trigger is that like even if you do all the side quests, it's like a 25-hour game max.
Yeah, and it feels like you get like a full game out of it too.
It does not feel like 25 hours.
No, it doesn't. It's really good. Anyone who's watching or listening to this, you really have to play Chrono Trigger if you haven't. Because I think it was it last year or the year before I replayed it, and I was like, and like, you know, when you've played a game and you really liked it, and it's like Chrono Trigger is one of those games where it's really hard. Like, it's not my favorite game of all time, but it's really hard to not consider it one of the best JRPGs of all time.
Oh, dude. Well, if you think about it, like, it's a super team. Like, it everything that you could ever want out of your childhood specifically is in there. Akira Toriyama, Yuji Horii, and Hironobu Sakaguchi, the big three.
Uematsu and who was the other one?
Mitsuda.
Yeah, like holy fuck. It's just like literally a super team, man.
Like if there is one RPG out there, like everybody's like, oh, which Final Fantasy should you play first? If I'm introducing somebody to the JRPG genre, it is impossible for me to not recommend Chrono Trigger. Like impossible. I cannot.
It's so good.
Not recommend that game because
the pacing's so good. It's not too hard. Like there's maybe like 2 really hard boss fights in the game, but
the mechanics are really cool.
Yeah, the mechanics are really good. It's such a good game.
It is a really good game.
Now, and then I did want to mention like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has the Xenoblade series is kind of known for having like a fuckload of side quests, and the first one is to a detriment, but in 2 and 3 they do a good job. Like they're so like I said earlier, how one of the shittiest things about some side quests is you'll like do all this stuff and you'll get like a potion for it. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing worse than that. But the Xenoblade games, the later ones anyways, you get like huge story insights to like characters in your party. And the party in Xenoblade 3 anyways is pretty big, because basically the characters determine, like, you have like these things called, I think they're blades in that one as well, but you have these, basically you get like a plethora of all these characters that you unlock, and those are your job classes essentially. So if you like equip that character, you become that kind of job class.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them, and each of them has like their own like really in-depth story. So you can just go and get that character so that you have like that guy's abilities and stuff in battle if you choose that job class, or you can get that character and then like fully invest in their entire like life story. And you can do that for like fucking I think there's like 60 fucking characters.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude. And they're all like really good and really well done. But this brings me to my biggest question for you. What do you think of that when like there's like very good and maybe not essential, but it enhances the game so much, but it's hidden behind a side quest that you might not do? What do you think of that?
I think
that's like a catch-22.
Yeah. So the problem I had, and I'll just use Rebirth as a recent example. There is a moment in the original Final Fantasy VII where Barrett comes to terms with the fact that he's responsible for a lot of deaths in the game. Like, he feels responsible for Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge dying. He feels responsible for Dyne. He feels responsible for, raising Marlene. He has all these responsibilities, and he feels that he's responsible for all these deaths and stuff. And he kind of comes to terms with it and moves on to be the hero that he needs to be for Marlene and for the planet.
Yeah.
And he does that on the Bridge of the Highwind. And that's part of the main story. Like, that is in the story.
Yeah.
And they kind of relegated that to side quests in Rebirth. And it's part of the proto relic quests. And they're worth doing.
Are those the ones that you're getting like all the summons and stuff from, basically?
No, that's where you're getting the stuff to fight Gilgamesh eventually.
Oh, okay.
So, while it's in your best interest to do them, especially if you're going to complete the game, I didn't like that it relegated such powerful moments to side quests.
Yeah.
That you may not do. Even though I had the intention to do them, a lot of people will, and I wonder if, like, in part 3, if we're going to have that moment with Barrett where he comes to terms with it, right? Like, because it feels like he kind of already has.
Yeah, because
by the end of the side quest, like, each part of the side quest, you have, like, a flashback with the Avalanche crew.
Right.
Of, like, Barrett remembering them fondly. And then
I thought you said fondling.
Yeah, no, fondly. And he there's this ritual in Cosmo Canyon where they light a lamp and it floats off into the air or whatever. And he kind of does that for Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge.
Oh, okay.
And it's almost like he's made peace with their death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we're going to get that in part 3 because it feels like it's already been done.
Yeah.
And I don't really like that because I don't want important character development to be relegated to a side quest.
Especially something that happened in the main story in the original
now,
game.
if it's a side character that I don't necessarily have to care about, then I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me because that's optional content for an optional character. Yeah. But if it's a main character and you're relegating their character development to a side quest, I don't necessarily like that. I think there can be character development in a side quest, but if the main goal of a character... It shouldn't be
pivotal, though.
Right, it shouldn't be pivotal character development. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's kind of my answer for your question in a roundabout way, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's tough for, game developers and writers, because you want the side quest to be as rewarding as possible, a really good side quest. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't want that to take away from something that could have been in the main story.
Right.
And that's where, I'm torn when it comes to the Xenoblade 3 stuff, because, most of these characters are optional characters, but, they're really good, and they all have really fucking good backstories and, reasons, why you ended up fighting against them. Because, most of them, you gain them in your party by something happens and they're opposing you, and then you fight them, and then when you best them and spare their life, they're like, why would you spare my life? And it's you save them from the flame clock and stuff. I don't know if you know any of the lore of Xenoblade.
I don't at all.
There's basically, in the third one, there's these big mechs, and each mech is basically the cornerstone, I guess, of each colony, and the colonies are just little towns, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 factions, basically, and one faction, and they're always wanting to kill each other. Yeah. And as they kill each other, it fills up the flame clock. It's a big fiery ring around the eye of the mech, and as you fill the flame clock, the mech gets more powerful and all that stuff. And they're kind of like slaves to it. You can't disobey your colony because you're kind of brainwashed and locked into it, physically, right, and stuff like that. And the only way to be free from it is if somebody destroys the flame clock. Well, the hero of the third game has one of the only devices that can actually break a flame clock. And so you fight these guys because everyone's basically brought up to fight in war, because that's what feeds the system, basically, is just endless war and killing. And so so you fight the guys, and then they're like, why are you sparing me? And then you kill, ruin the flame clog, and then they're free. And then most of the time they're freaking out and don't know what to do, because nobody's free until you start freeing them. For thousands of years, everyone's just been a slave to these things. But anyways, so it's you want to learn about these characters that you freed, because it's a big boss fight moment every time you free one of these guys, and then they join your party, and some of them are really likable, and the ones that aren't likable, you still want to know their backstories. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's just, I understand why they have to be side content, because like I said, there's 60 fucking characters or something like that, and you can't cover all of them in the main story. But it's just there's so much good stuff. And I got to a point where I couldn't just keep doing them. I was I got to finish this fucking game. And my buddy Mike, he did all of them. He 100%ed it. And I remember just watching, because he was streaming it, and watching his stream and being fuck, man, I really wish I didn't miss out on that story. And a lot of it, because there is a main cast, there's 6 characters in the main cast, and you learn a bit about them as much as you're learning about these new characters all the time, because they always there's always one of the 6 characters relates more to the next new character and stuff like that. You kind of find out why, and and like my favorite character, I can't remember her name. It was like Joe or something like that. It was like the little girl with like the blue hair, and she was so good. And then yeah, it was the one side quest. It was like you find like one of the people from like her old colony or something, and it's like, I don't know, it's just like heart wrenching. You like learn all this stuff about like before she was taken in by this other group, and it's just it's like pivotal character development, I guess, but it's also like side content and optional, and it's just like it's a really hard thing to balance when it
But it's
comes
not
to.
something that, like, if you didn't do it, it wouldn't affect the main story in any
No,
significant
that's
way.
true. That's true.
Okay, then yeah. So I'd be okay with something like that.
Yeah, I'm very like, and I think that's why I'm like more of a Dragon Quest guy than Final Fantasy guy. I'm very like into characters, even more so above the story a lot of the times.
So
So like stuff like that is like very meaningful to me.
I do and I don't like From Software's way of doing side content, because like you get rewarded really well for side content in those games,
Which is good.
but they're so naturally occurring that you may not necessarily know how to even start a quest, let alone continue it. There's no quest log. There's no
that's
like
tough sometimes.
Right. Sometimes there's map markers, but not like really. Especially in like the Dark Souls games, because there's not really like you don't open a map.
Yeah.
You know, like you would in Elden Ring. But there are still ways to do things. Like, I honestly don't know how anybody found the Nameless King the first time, because to do the Nameless King, you have to find a specific emote that your character does, like a pose or whatever. You have to go to this very specific spot in the, I think it's the Irithyll dungeon. Irithyll dungeon, I think. And then there's like an area that has like all these like half human, half dragon statues looking things, and you have to do that pose in this specific spot, and it takes you to
what the fuck,
like Dragon's Peak or whatever it's called, and then you have to go through Dragon's Peak, which isn't very long, but you get to the end of Dragon's Peak, and then you can fight the Nameless King.
But there's nothing really like even like hinting at that.
No, not at all.
Oh, weird.
So like, yeah, I like From Software side content, but sometimes find it too difficult to actually start. But like a lot of some of the rewards in those games are either weapons or armor, but sometimes it's just finding that next challenge, which for me is why I play FromSoft games. Like, I play them for the challenge and the rush of adrenaline it gives me when I complete those challenges.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially if you're getting a side quest specific boss fight.
Right. So Nameless King is one of the hardest fights in the entire Souls series.
Oh, okay.
And so I really enjoyed it because that was a challenge I was looking for.
Is he the blind guy with like the long sword?
No, it's the one with the lightning spear. He actually rides a dragon for his first phase.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that guy. Who's the guy with the blind guy? And there's like pillars in the room, and he's got like that long sword.
Oh, that's in Demon Souls, and that's the
only one I've played. Man.
Something Hero, I think. It's something Hero, I believe, but yeah, that's in Demon Souls.
I always thought that was okay. Yeah, I only played Demon Souls and a little bit of what's the one that it's not Dark Souls, Bloodborne.
Dude, Bloodborne's fucking awesome. I love that game.
I like it.
Daily reminder, chat, to play Bloodborne. Dude, the Old Hunters DLC is so fucking good, dude. It has what's considered one of the hardest boss fights ever, and that's Orphan of Kos, and it's fucking awesome.
Never mind.
It is nightmare fuel, dude. It is fucking incredible. The game is actually inspired by Lovecraft. So
okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fucking good, dude. I love it. But yeah, I like FromSoft's design philosophy, but sometimes feel like it's very hard to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But then once you do, holy shit, dude, it's such a ride. It's
always worth it.
Like, you got in Dragon's Peak, you got I think it's called the Dragon Slayer armor or something like that, and it's actually the armor of Ornstein from Dark Souls 1.
Okay.
He followed the Nameless King to the Dragon's Peak, and his armor is there now. And the theory is that the dragon that Nameless King rides is actually Ornstein, who turned into a dragon. Because in Dark Souls 1, his affinity was lightning. And then in Dark Souls 3, the name of the dragon is like Ruler of Storms.
Okay.
And he's lightning affiliated, and so is Nameless King. And so, like, the lore is usually really good in their side quests. Like, Nameless King is the son of Gwyn from Dark Souls 1. But he's a cast out, like he's an outcast. So the reason why he's the Nameless King is because no one knows his name because he was banished from the kingdom. And all of the statues of the Nameless King in Dark Souls 1 have been destroyed. So you don't know what he even looks like in Dark Souls 1. Until you face him in Dark Souls 3, you have no idea what he looks like. And obviously his name.
But they reference him in the first game, even though he's not like in it.
Yes, they call him
cool.
They call him the son of Gwyn, and all of his statues are destroyed. You don't know what he looks like until you get to him in Dark Souls 3, and it's fucking awesome.
See, I always like when there's like a build up through games, and I think that was another reason I really liked Phantasy Star 4 was like, because like I don't want to spoil anything story wise, but there's like someone that's like there's like this being that's like behind kind of everything at the end of Phantasy Star 1, and then apparently he shows up, like a bunch of that stuff shows up in the second one, and then the third game. And then it starts showing up everywhere in the fourth. And the fourth is basically about like sealing it. Like you have to defeat it a few times. But the real goal of the fourth game is to like seal this like kind of vortex so it can't come through ever again. But it's like you're paying tribute to all those heroes from like the first game, the second game, the third game who beat the thing before, because this thing comes out every 1,000 years. And this fourth one is like that, and there's like a big like passing of the torch moment in the fourth one too, where you get like the legendary weapon, and they're like this is on you now, you can do this, because the hero's very young in the fourth one, and he doesn't really like believe in himself that he could be the one to do this, because he's like dude, I'm just a regular fucking guy, and then he like these guys basically are like, you can do this. I was just like you. Like I was just a regular dude too. Like, and like your friends will support you and like all that stuff. And then it's just like this big passing of the torch moment. And I just love when something from like the first game carries forward, be it in like a side quest or like a post game dungeon or whatever, right? And then it just like pays off like 2 or 3 games later. I love that shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing about FromSoft games is like if you're willing to look for it, it's very rewarding when you get that. Like Elden Ring suffers from the problem that it's almost too big, and that like you might go through an entire cave, and if that reward at the end of the cave doesn't fit your build, it kind of was like, what's the point of me doing it?
Yeah.
And there's nothing really to tell you that
if it is or not.
If it is or not, which is, I mean, I get that because it's an open world game and it's very minimal in its providing of information.
Yeah.
So, like, you might get to the end of a dungeon or a cave or a town or whatever and find something super badass for your build, or you might even find something that you change your build for.
It's that good, right?
It's that good. And I've done that several times in Elden Ring where I've kind of had a build in mind when I started my playthrough.
And then you found something
I found something really fucking good that comboed well, but I needed to tweak a little bit of something. And that's where I like the side content too, is because like once I finish something, a side content or a side quest or whatever for like Elden Ring or Dark Souls or whatever, if that reward gets me to change my build in any kind of way, I actually do like that, because then that makes it feel like what I did was worth it.
And then you're experiencing different play styles too. It's encouraging you to try different play styles.
Well, and the other thing too is that like you can respec your character, and let's say you pick up a weapon that you think's really badass or you want to try, you can go and respec your character and use that weapon now.
Yeah.
Like there's a Moonveil Katana, which used to be like one of the most broken weapons in the fucking game. But like, let's say you're a strength build, and the Moonveil Katana uses dexterity, and I think I can't remember what the other stat is, but there's another stat, faith or something like that, and that boosts like your magic attack. So it's like not only a physical weapon, it's also a magic weapon. And if you boost both of those stats, you get scaling in those stats for that weapon.
Okay, yeah.
So like, let's say I was doing a strength build and I was doing like long swords or something like that. Well, now I want to do a faster katana build. And I can do that now because I can respec.
Yeah. Well, you kind of even did that in Dragon Quest X. You completely changed your play style because you found that sweet sword. Remember?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I was using axes forever, and then I found that that long sword.
I usually don't do that. Like I almost never, and that's like I think just the old school like JRPG mindset,
like where you didn't have job classes.
Yeah. Like it's just like, or if there is job classes, I very rarely like ever change my job class. Like if I find one that I like, I'm like probably just locked in, and unless there's like a better version of that same class later on or something like that.
See, I did it for Elden Ring. I did a single build run of Elden Ring where I had just finished Berserk 97. And there's a sword in Elden Ring that is literally the Dragon Slayer from Berserk. Well, it's close enough that it's basically that sword because Miyazaki's a huge Berserk fan. In fact, that's what like all of the FromSoft games, besides like obviously Sekiro and Bloodborne that are very specifically tailored. The Dark Souls games and Elden Ring are very Berserk in nature.
Yeah, they're kind of like partially inspired by it.
Oh, way more than partially inspired, like heavily inspired. But
yeah,
so it's like I want side quests to be rewarding, but side quests can be rewarding in very different ways. Like sometimes they're rewarding in the idea that you get expansion on character development. Yeah. Sometimes it's an item you're looking for. Sometimes it's like a cool weapon or maybe it's just lore. Maybe it's just like lore
lore. I like world lore too,
right?
Man.
Or like in FromSoft games, it's that challenge. It's that extra boss that you wouldn't normally get.
Yeah,
if you weren't doing the challenge. And like Millennia is one of the hardest bosses I've ever fought, and she's completely optional.
Is she a side quest?
Yeah, she's a side quest, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, very long side quest, but yeah. Once you get that, holy shit, does it feel so good to beat her.
Yeah, I thought that she was part of like the main story. I didn't know
if she was, I think there'd be a lot more people that wouldn't be able to finish Elden Ring.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She's tough.
My whole issue with those games is the third dimension is my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
But B, like if I'm gonna do like a hack and slash style game, I need it to be like arcadey as fuck and like real fast.
Where it doesn't punish you for not being a sweat.
Yeah, like and I just find those games so fucking slow. Like
they're very deliberate.
Yeah,
they're very deliberate. They try to
just do an agility build, and it's like it's still like my fucking side strafing is just like
they try to make it more like realistic combat.
Realistic, yeah. And I get that. That's why, like, when I first got Demon Souls, I did enjoy it for like the first while.
It's very weighty. It's very like if you use a great sword, you feel that you're using a great sword. But if you use like a dagger, you feel that you're using a dagger. Like there's definitely different like speeds and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still like you're still going to have to go through the motion of swinging that dagger. You're still going to have to load up a greatsword. Like it's very realistic and weighty.
Yeah.
Compared
and I did
to
it's weird because I did appreciate Demon Souls when it came out. And I did I played it like a decent amount. Like I got like a decent
Yeah.
ways in. There was a lot of like really fucking cheap deaths of just like accidentally like walking off a fucking bridge or something, or like there's a lot of times when you're like on like there's you'll come out of like a cave system, and there'll be like a little kind of like a bridgey deck thing, and you'll just fucking slip off because of the clunk. Oh my god, that shit brought my piss to a boil.
Yeah, platforming not the biggest concern in those games, to be quite honest. Yeah.
But,
I will say this though, playing those has definitely given me a better understanding of game design, because like
no doubt.
before I played those games, I really fucking hated them. I really did. Like I tried playing Dark Souls 3 with my roommate several years ago, back when like Dark Souls 3 first came out. And I'd never played a FromSoft game before, so I was like, okay, what is this, you know? And I'd heard about how difficult they were, but I was like, they can't be that hard, right? I was fucking wrong. Anyway, so for somebody that has a gaming channel, right? Like, you would think that I would have a rudimentary knowledge of game design, stuff like that. I didn't realize how little I knew until I really dove into the From Software games. And what it meant to be challenging, what it meant to be like to overcome adversity and defeat a challenge that you had never thought possible. Like you fought this boss and you're like, there's no way I can beat this. And then eventually you figure out a strategy.
Dude.
You know, you beat the boss in a way that you never thought was possible. And then you start realizing that like no matter what your build is, you can find a way to overcome this challenge. You just have to do it in a way that fits your playstyle.
Yeah.
And like you look up videos online and you got people doing these one-shot builds, or they're using the worst statistical weapons, spells, whatever in the game, and they're still overcoming the challenge. So anything in the game is viable. Any strategy in the game is viable if you do it right. And that's what I love about From Software, is that you don't have to be this fucking god tier player to beat them. You just have to be persistent, and you have to figure it out. It's a puzzle. It's a dance.
You know what's the fucking worst? And like I don't play like those games, but I play a lot of like old like retro games that are hard as fuck. But the worst thing ever is when you're stuck on a spot in a game or like a boss or something, and you're like, I almost got it. Like on your like 5th try, you're like, I almost got it. And then you're like, your 10th try, you're like, I'm getting closer. And then you hit that point where you start doing worse.
Yes.
Every time you try. Fuck, that is the worst, man. And then you're like, the more I play this, the worse I'm going to get now. So we need to have a break. Like,
yeah, that was me with Ishin Sword Saint and fucking Sekiro. That is the hard. I'm sorry, like, people can say it's Millennia all day. Fuck that. It is Ishin Sword Saint, because holy fuck is that fight hard. But it's funny because like you get online, and I did this for Rebirth. Like I was looking up strategies for Rulers of the Outer World, which is like this really fucking hard boss gauntlet.
Yeah.
And there was like, defeat this solo with Kate Sith, and I was like, fuck you, I can't do that shit with 3 party members, let alone fucking Kate Sith, you bastard. Like, it's funny because side content like that is really hard, and it was like the one time in the game where I felt like I did something that felt cheap.
Oh, you
because
cheesed it?
Yeah, you have to almost to beat it.
I like cheese and shit though.
Yeah, I mean sometimes I do.
I like breaking games and like cheesing things. Like
the first time,
my favorite thing.
So the first time I play a Souls game, I try to play them
legitimate kind of thing.
And then once I've played them once, I will start doing shit just to test it.
Yeah.
Or like finding these broken strats or builds or whatever that really just decimate shit. Like I had a strength build recently where I used the greatsword, and I think it's Lion's Claw or Lion's Roar or something like that. And basically what it is it's like you take the sword and you do like almost like Cloud's Braver from Final Fantasy VII, where he does the flip and then brings down the sword.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that one now. Yeah.
You do that in fucking Elden Ring, and if you load up your fucking character with enough strength, like I think it's strength and there's these buffs that you can put on, like flame grant me strength. There's one that's like a holy spell that you can use that adds to your abilities. There's certain like accessories you can get from side questing that add to your strength and your abilities and stuff, and you do like 3 or 4 uses of Lion's Claw and you just fucking destroy Millennia. And that was what I did the last time I fought her. And I'm like, holy shit, I should have done this my first fucking playthrough, because she went down like
one-shot her almost.
So I think you can one-shot her. I think it's actually possible. I've never done it, but I think it is possible. But it is a bitch, let me tell you, to fight her straight up, because she heals every time she hits you. Every single strike from her blade heals her.
Do that.
Like,
dude, fucking the final boss of Dragon Quest II on the NES, like the NES version, he had the full heal spell, and back in the NES games, the monsters didn't actually have an MP pool, so he could just infinitely keep he could beat the shit out of you and then cast full heal on himself, and then like just keep beating the shit out of you and doing that.
Jesus,
dude, he's so hard on the NES version, and like he still does it in like the newer versions. Like he'll do it, but you know he's got an MP pool. So even if you're struggling like big time against him, you know there's a limit to how many times he can actually do it. But in the original, he could just fucking do it forever if he wanted to. And I kind of like, dude, like final boss fights that are like you have to have a bit of luck to even win. Like, yeah, no, I love that.
Why?
I don't know, but like, I think it's because like it's the final boss. Like it should be like seemingly impossible, because after this you're done. Like, you know what I mean? Like you got to get past this last thing. And I remember because my buddy Mike, he played final. So his goal was to like finally play like all the Final Fantasy games, because he was your typical Final Fantasy VII fan that was like, Final Fantasy VII is the best one. It's the only one I played. Like one of those guys, right? And then I was like, dude, you got to play the rest of the games, because like a lot of them are really good. I told him to skip 2 and 3. He tried 2 and then was like, fuck this, and skipped it, and then went to 4. But the first one he played was actually 9, because he knew 9 and 4 were like my favorites, right? And he wanted a PS1 game because that was like the one he grew up on, was 9 or 7 which was a PS1 game. So he played it. And anyways, like for those of you that might be those Final Fantasy VII fans that have only played 7, Sephiroth is like arguably the easiest Final Fantasy final boss. Like probably not even arguably. And but like a lot of Final Fantasy VII fans, if that's the only one they've beaten, they think that boss fight is hard. And so, anyways, Mike is going into the final boss series of fights in Final Fantasy IX, and you think it's Kuja, right? Because you got like Trans Kuja, and like it's about as hard as the final fight in Final Fantasy VII. Trans Kuja, as I would say. And then you beat him, and you're like, fuck yeah. And then stuff starts happening, and you're like, what's going on? And then Necron shows up. And then you're like, wait, what the fuck is this? What is going on? And he's like the god of death, basically. Like he is like this like uber being, and he just wants world peace. How does he want to attain world peace? If everything's dead, there can be no conflict, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, he has that ability that just brings everyone down to 1 HP, and then you're just scrambling. And like, to me, like if you are going to beat that boss, you either have to be prepared specifically for that stuff, which you can't really do because you're blindsided that this guy even shows up.
Right.
Or you have to be lucky as fuck. And I love that like really hard, this guy, I love when a final boss has a party wipe ability and they have to choose not to use it if you want to win.
Well, you'd really love From Software games because they all have that.
Yeah, but they're not turn-based. You know what I mean? Like I like it in turn-based JRPGs. But even like Zero Miss, man, when he uses like Big Bang and stuff like that, like, and you can hear him like he's basically like counting it down when he takes like a step and stuff, and like, oh my god, Zero Miss is another one that we should do a one on final boss fights. We should do a podcast.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that you mentioned that about like the final boss being easy, and then you have a next challenge. Final Fantasy X actually reversed that, where the final boss
the final boss was like the easy as fuck.
The final boss was basically Jecht, and the actual final boss of the game was.
I don't think you can lose, can you?
I don't think you can either.
You can take forever, like a long ass time, but I don't think you can even lose. Why am I holding? I have a mug. Why am I holding it like this?
I don't know. Jesus Christ. We got a little sidetracked there. We went on a
sidetracked with our side quests. Any other side quests though that come off the top of your head that are like just absolutely incredible?
I don't know, because there's so many out there.
There's a lot in Chrono Cross too. Chrono Cross had some good side quests.
Yeah. Chrono Trigger is usually the example I give of good side quests.
Yeah.
I love From Software's style of side quests.
Final Fantasy IX had some good side quests, but it didn't feel like it impacted like the game all that much or the characters, but they were still fun. Like
people are gonna think I'm crazy, stuff. But I think the reward outweighs the tediousness of it that makes it worth it.
For which?
For 7. Chocobo breeding.
No, it's fucking dog shit.
It is dog shit.
I literally fight Ruby Weapon because it's it's easier and more enjoyable.
I hate Chocobo breeding, but I think Knights of the Round is worth it.
Yeah, but you could just beat Ruby Weapon, and it's like way less shitty than having a Chocobo breed.
But it is cool to use the fucking combinations with Knights of the Round too, though.
But I will say, when it comes to like side content, like if we're talking like super bosses, Final Fantasy probably has the best, I think, super bosses out of any series.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest, I like Dragon Quest's super bosses because it's usually like post game, and it's usually like because Dragon Quest games take place like one after the other, or like in the same kind of like realm of a world. You'll fight like it's usually Estark. You'll fight like Estark will be like sleeping, or you'll wake him up and you'll fight Estark. And I just love Estark, who he is, what he stands for. So when they put him in like as a post game dungeon, and then I think it was like Dragon Quest 6 where you actually get to go, because the Zenithian trilogy, like 4, 5, and 6 are very lightly connected for the most part. But when you beat 6's post game, I believe, you can make a wish if you want to see the future or the past. And depending on which one you choose, you get to either see people from Dragon Quest 4 or people from Dragon Quest 5 or something like that. And that was like a really cool, like post-game kind of super boss dungeon reward. I do think like the two best rewards is like either like I like it when it's like a new ability, like skill or like spell or whatever, or a new weapon, or like just really good like character or world lore are the best rewards, I think, for a side quest. Like when you get the rainbow shell in Chrono Trigger, right? And then you can make the rainbow sword and stuff. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, I like when kind of touching on that, I like when side quests give you like, I like chain side quests.
Yeah, like, where you can unlock another side quest.
Right, like where you, like, okay, let's say you complete this and you get this item. And then you start learning that this item, when combined with another item, helps make part of a weapon or something like that. Like, like you found this rusty hilt, and then they're like, oh, since you found the rusty hilt, here's a side quest that gets you the handle or the blade or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like once you do that, then you realize you have to find like a special smithing stone from this cave or whatever. And then by the time you're done with this side quest, you have the best weapon in the game.
Yeah, you build like a legendary sword.
I think I like side quests like that. I think those are really, like, if they're really well done and really well rewarding, I like when they do things like that.
Dragon Quest 9 kind of does something like that, because you get an item. I can't remember if it's a side quest or one of the treasure grottos, but you get what's called the rusty sword. And of course, when you get it, it just says the text, you have obtained like the rusty sword, and you're like, oh, that sounds like shit. and then you go in your inventory, and it's literally Erdrick's sword rusted to shit because Dragon Quest IX takes place so long after the first game. And then you're like, holy fuck, that's Erdrick's sword. So then at some point you're probably going to be able to restore this thing, and then after you get like other objects, you're able to get Erdrick's sword.
Perfect example, Final Fantasy X. Now I don't like the mini games that you have to do in 10 to get that,
the celestial weapons and stuff.
But the Celestial Mirror, all that's really cool. I like that setup. The Mega Sisters, I like that.
Oh, the Mega Sisters I like. I didn't like the celestial weapons at all.
There were some that I didn't mind.
I've only ever done them all once.
I really liked, well, you would like Wakka's, because Wakka's Blitzball.
Yeah, I don't even use him.
Oh, God, he's just so broken, dude. His attack
reels... That's what I heard.
Dude, his attack reels do, like, fuckloads of damage if you have the Celestial weapon. Jesus Christ. It's almost necessary to defeat the Dark Aeons with it.
I just used Yojimbo.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were gonna fucking say that, you fucking cheap bastard. But I'm not saying you're a gigantic pussy, but
Dude, I love just cheesing shit, man.
Oh, I know. And Yojimbo is like the fucking most. He has to be the most powerful summon ever. Like,
oh, he is.
You could say Knights of the Round, but Knights of the Round isn't even a necessarily like one-shot kill against super bosses. Whereas Yojimbo is literally, you can use it against Penance, the hardest boss in the fucking game.
Yojimbo is like if Odin actually worked how Odin should work.
Right.
Yeah. And on bosses and stuff. One thing I wanted to bring up when you were like getting an object and then like carrying on and getting another object. The worst fucking, I think, side quest ever. And I can't remember what game this was. I want to say it was like a Breath of Fire game, but it might have been...
Was it catching frogs in Final Fantasy 15?
No, I love that shit, dude.
God. What?
I love that shit. I loved it in Final Fantasy 9 too, man.
I never know quite how to read you sometimes. Because that's the one side quest I figured you'd fucking hate.
Oh, I love it. I really wish I remembered what game it was. I want to say it's a Breath of Fire game. But there's this guy you talk to, and he gives you this like, it's like this stone ball or something. And then as you progress through the game, there's another guy in another town. If you talk to him, he'll be like, oh, I'll take your stone ball and turn it into an iron ball. And you're like, okay. And then you give him the stone ball and you get the iron ball. And you have to find these like by chance, these guys in each town. And then it just keeps going until you keep getting like these different balls. And then I ended up like missing them because I didn't care enough. And I think I ended up asking one of the people in my chat, like, what does this even fucking give you at the end? And they're like, oh yeah, it gives you like this pearl ball. I'm like, what the fuck does that do? They're like, I don't know, you just get it. It's like, the fuck, dude?
Then what the fuck is the point?
What's the fucking point?
Other than if you're a completionist.
Yeah, and I used to be a completionist actually a while back. And then I embezzled a bunch of charity money. No, I'm just kidding. But I did. Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
No, I used to be a completionist, though. I used to like if that was a big reason why I didn't like Zelda games, too. Because I have to get like every heart piece and stuff like that. Sorry. and like, I remember like Rogue Galaxy, dude. I had every item. And there was these items called like these legendary like 7-star swords in the galaxy. And I had all the 7-star swords. I had to do like the 300 floor ghost ship post game dungeon.
Dude, it's okay. I literally platinumed Elden Ring. And to do that, you have to get every legendary weapon, every legendary spell, every legendary like accessory and shit like that. Like, trust me, I feel you.
Yeah, I used to be like that until I started streaming, and then I was like, okay, I'll literally be playing the same game for a year if I do that.
Right.
So now I'm pretty good at like not doing that, and I can get through a fuckload more games. There's definitely like stuff I like to hit, and same with like with older games, you can usually get away with doing all the side quests because there's usually like not a whole lot in like the older games. But
dude, Sekiro actually tied the side quest into one of the major endings of the game.
Oh,
So,
that's cool.
there's a side quest that you can do where it's one of the most extensive side quests probably ever. In fact, the amount of people that have probably done it is really low. But basically, it's like an entire game long fetch quest where as you progress the game, there are certain things that you do, certain items you find, and everything, and it all leads up to the ending of the game. And
Okay.
basically, the gist of it is that you have, I think it's 4 options. One, you can end the game super early and fight a 2 boss, like, one back to back, and that gives you one of the bad ending, quote unquote, the Shura ending.
Okay.
And then there's there's a neutral ending. It's kind of like, okay, this is the base ending of the game. There's a good ending, I guess, and then there's like the best ending, and the best ending requires you to do that, and it's really, really good. It's just really long, but for me, it was worth it, and it was actually how I ended the game the first time I played it.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it's a really good ending, and it's a really good side quest, but it is very difficult because there's a lot of extra stuff you have to do to get it done.
Did you have to? So another thing I that makes a bad side quest to me is if you pretty much have to follow a guide in order to complete like a side quest.
Yeah, you kind of do with this one
I
because it's
hate
so
that, man.
extensive.
Yeah,
But
it should be like
it's also an
naturally
optional
like
it's also an
yeah, yeah,
optional ending. So
right. But
really
still,
you're
like
really only rewarded with an optional ending.
yeah, but that's a pretty big deal.
And some of the things are done naturally through the story anyway.
Okay.
And other
I
things
also
like
hate missable side quests. I hate that shit. Dude, speaking of missable side quests, I got to like right before you would go to like the final dungeon in Phantasy Star 4, and like there's like a few optional dungeons in that game, and I up to this point I had done them all. And the last one, you go and you get Ren, who is like the best fucking character. Like he's one of my favorite characters ever now. He's basically fucking RoboCop. And like he's like like a I don't know, like 19-year-old RoboCop like anime dude. And he's got like shoots missiles out of like his shoulders and stuff. Like
the
he's
hell?
fucking awesome, dude. He's like a cyborg. But anyways, in order to get his best like skills are like their big like finishing moves kind of things. In order to get his best skill, you have to go into this this abandoned factory place, like machinery place. And when you go there, there's like a barrier, and you're like, oh, we can't get in, blah blah blah. And then, anyways, the way Fantasy Star 4 does its side quests, unfortunately, is because you're part of like the Hunters Guild, you have to go to the Hunters Guild. There's like a list of side quests, and you have to just select that quest, and then you can do it. Well, guess what? All the quests are like white, and then the very bottom one that I need in order to get inside the fucking factory is yellowed out. And so I select it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can't do this one anymore. This quest is no
Yeah.
longer available." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? It's his final like move, like his final like good attack." And I couldn't do it. And Fantasy Star 4 anyways does combo attacks. So like if I use this specific move and 2 other party members or even 3 other party members use these specific moves, you'll do like this big super move.
Yeah.
And in order to get the best like combo, I needed, because I already had the main character's best move, and I had the other characters, but I didn't have like my favorite character's best move, and I couldn't get it because if you don't do that quest before you leave to the like third planet or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like it's missable.
Some
And it's like
games
fuck, I hate that shit.
some games will actually warn you
Yeah, you're about to
before
pass the point of whatever.
right,
Yeah,
like you need to make sure that
Xenoblade
you
does
do
that.
everything right here or
Yeah,
you're not
I
going to be able
like
to do
that.
anything. Yeah, I do too. I enjoy that warning a little bit cuz it kind of gives you that like, hey, don't do this, or you know.
Yeah, yeah. For side quests, what did you think of Mognet in Final Fantasy IX?
It's been so long since I played it that I don't refresh my memory on it.
Mognet was so you start it really early in the game, and it's kind of like the mail service between all the Mughals, and then like
Oh, yeah.
people will run their mail to the Mughals, and you like deliver it to all the different places. And I liked it because of the world building. I felt like the actual like tangible rewards were kind of not that great. But I felt like just because of the lore and the world building, and you really felt like you were like making a difference in these characters' lives because
Yeah, I mean, in that regard,
you
yeah.
were the mail service, right? Like there's no like actual mail service in the game, so like loved ones would come and like there'd be like, oh my god, I
Right.
heard Lindblom was attacked, so you'd like bring your letter to Lindblom and be like, hey, I'm doing well, blah blah blah. Like I don't know, I really like that, and then I really like the kind of like the comedy ending where you find out that what's his name is just greasing himself up with like the fucking ink from the printing press, and that's what kind of caused the whole Mognet to shut down.
Yeah, I was kind of indifferent about it. Like
Yeah, I kind of figured. I think most people are,
yeah, I'm not like,
and it's
yay,
very
it's
easy to fuck
awesome.
up. Like if you miss one Mognet, like, and some of the Mughals aren't even easy to find. Like right in, even in the ice cavern, as you're going up the ice cavern, it's like an optional route. You have to like thaw out the one wall, and then you have to go back in the thing. Oh no,
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking of Gizamaluke's grotto. You go in that room with like the bell and stuff, and then you have to thaw out the Moogle, and then he like comes to life, and then you can talk to him.
Hmm.
But if you don't go that way, and you go through to like continue the story, you'll miss him, and you will like the Mognet will you'll never get approached about Mognet ever again.
Wasn't there a side quest in 9 that hadn't been discovered for like a long time and then somebody finally figured it out? Like
I think so. I don't remember what it was, but I do think so.
you have to walk around a certain area in a town or something, like back into the back or something, and then like talk to a guy or
I think it was in the I could be completely wrong, but there was that it was like up on a big plateau. There was like that almost like Thieves Guild
yeah,
place.
I think so,
I think
yeah.
it was in there, hey?
Yeah, there's some side quest if I remember right, just it was like hadn't been found for several years or something and
Yeah.
they
I like that shit too when people like find stuff in games
yeah, me too.
that like years later. And it's weird like the developers were like so tight-lipped that like you'd think a developer would leak it at some point
Yeah.
because
Or it
nobody
would
had
be in a
found it.
strategy guide or something like that. But
Yeah,
nine
yeah.
strategy guide is
The
literally
play
like
online, my friend bought that,
is
man.
infamous for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about mini games? What are some of your favorite mini games and least favorite mini games?
Probably everything from 10 besides Blitzball is my least favorite.
What are
Because
the other? Oh yeah, so
fuck the butterfly hunt, fuck
yeah,
the
that's
lightning
shitty.
dodge, and fuck the chocobo
The
race.
lightning dodge is the worst, I would say, out of all. I can't do it. The chocobo one is like it's not enjoyable, but I'm able to get like under zero like quite consistently.
Yeah.
But the lightning one is I've never done it. I don't think I've ever done it.
I've done it, but only because I know the trick to it.
See, I looked up the trick and I still couldn't do it.
Really? The crater
Yeah.
trick?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Huh. That's
Where
funny.
you like walk to it or whatever, and then you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, I have a
Uh,
fucking for some reason when I get focused on a tedious thing, even
yeah,
though I know it's tedious and even though I know I hate it, I have to complete it because it's like this thing in my brain that says you're a bitch if you don't.
yeah. I'm like that with some things, but that one I couldn't do it. I couldn't do more than like 2 dodges in a row. So it's like, yeah. Same with like remember the VV jump rope on the PS4, like
Oh
the
god.
remaster version where the
Dude,
timing's fucked?
the only reason I have the Steam achievement for that is because I cheated.
Yeah, there's like a program. Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, as you brought up, I love the frog catching in Final Fantasy 9. Loved it even more in 15 because like to me like the things I love about 15 are when it pays tribute to like the earlier
Yeah.
games. Like even like is it Titans like holding back that meteor basically and it looks like the meteor kind of from like
Yeah, I
Final
think
Fantasy
so.
7 in the background all the time. And just like so many like references. I felt like Final Fantasy 15 to me felt like if they made a Final Fantasy movie. You know what I mean? It felt like the Hollywood version of a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah. Well, what I really like about 12 is that you're rewarded for doing side content in ways that you don't expect, like the Sky Pirates Den.
Oh yeah.
Where you get like the little like statue things in there that are like you killed 100 enemies, or you completed this quest, or you completed this hunt. Like if you defeat the chocobo in the mountains that turns like invisible, you get like a trophy in the Sky Pirates Den for that. Like
right.
And that's kind of gives people like that collectible that like doing that little collectible itch. Hunts, obviously, love those.
Yeah, I do love hunts.
Let's see. I would say probably my favorite, and this is going to sound weird, but I really like card games.
Yeah, as long as they're done well. Final Fantasy IX kind of botched it.
I love Triple Triad. Dude, Queen's Blood and Rebirth is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
holy shit, it's so good, dude. It's so good. It's almost taken over Triple Triad for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's that good, dude.
Triple Triad's top fucking tier.
It is.
I had like an app on my phone that would allow me to play like Triple Triad online against other people.
I even play Triple Triad in 14. So
it is in there. I forgot.
Yeah, I really love it. I would be fine if like Queen's Blood came out as an actual card game. I would totally play it.
You know what was there was like that shitty I think they just talk about it in Final Fantasy 15. It was like almost like a pinball game, and I downloaded it on my phone because
you can play
an actual game of it.
You can play it in 15.
Play it in 15?
Yeah, I believe so.
So they made it as like a mobile game, and it was like a free mobile game.
Yeah.
I just remember I played the shit out of that on my phone back in the day too.
Yeah.
There's so many good fucking any fishing mini game I'm pretty much gonna like fall in love with.
Yeah. I figured as soon as we were talking about mini games, that'd be one of the first things you talked about.
Final Fantasy 15s is of course like probably the best. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Blitzball for me, yeah, it's definitely up there.
Yeah, Blitzball is definitely one of those that people either love it or hate it. I
honestly think the people that hate Blitzball don't know how to play it.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that's just kind of like, about Blitzball. It's either you love it or you hate it.
But I swear to fuck, the guys that hate it don't know how to play it. Because if you look at the 3D like actual players, you're not really controlling them. You're controlling the arrows on the map.
Right.
And people like if you don't know that, you're going to be frustrated as fuck.
Well, and the other thing too is that like the card games, people either love it or they hate it. And I think it's because either they don't know how to play it or they just don't care enough to learn how to play it. And it's
and Triple Triad does get pretty bonkers once you get some of those shitty rule sets going.
Right, but I always change the rule sets.
Yeah, same. But if you don't know how, then you're
right.
Yeah.
I love when mini games and side quests like play into things cohesively.
Yeah.
So like Triple Triad had its own side quest.
Yeah, series of side quests like the Queen of Cards.
Queen's Blood does too. You actually go around and there's an actual story to Queen's Blood. And there's lore to the cards.
Oh, okay.
And like it's almost like Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit where there's like
really?
Yeah, where there's like lore to the cards itself, like there's a Queen of Cards, the Blood Queen or whatever. And there's an Emerald Queen, and they're opposing cards, right?
Oh, okay.
And there's lore as you play the game and as you go through the Queen's Blood side quests where the Blood Queen is like sucking the soul out of people that own her. And it's like you end up facing like Red 13 in Queen's Blood. You face like a dog, a chocobo. You face a fucking robot. You face Vincent. You face like a ghost of one of the people that had the Blood Queen.
Okay.
Then the Blood Queen like possesses one of the players and you play against the Blood Queen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's dope as fuck. Like, it is one of the best side quests I think I've ever
So it's
played.
kind of like a bit of a tribute to the Queen of Cards thing then, hey? Kind of?
Yeah. And like, it's so good, dude. Like, if there's one thing in Rebirth I could not dock the game for, it is for sure Queen's Blood, because it is fucking amazing. The dolphin minigame is fun.
Yeah, it looked like it reminded me of Wave Race.
Yeah, even the parade minigame is really good.
Oh, that was fun in that one.
Yeah, it was really good.
I hated it in the original. I
Yeah,
hated
I did
most
too.
of the side quests in the original. In fact, I don't know if there's one I liked in the original.
Yeah. I like minigames that have good mechanics and aren't just,
they have to work well.
Like, Nier has a fishing minigame, and it's not terrible, but I don't know, you might like it. I don't know. Well, I'm hit or miss on fishing minigames. Like, I really liked Link's Awakening.
Yeah,
that's the fishing
really
minigame in it. It had a really cool fishing minigame, but it was very basic, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked that one.
Yeah, it's tough to pick out, because sometimes it's like what constitutes as a minigame, you know?
You know what games have shitty fucking minigames where like they tell you the controls before you play it, and the controls just like don't even fucking work? Fucking Breath of Fire games, man. Like Breath of Fire, I want to say 3 was the worst for it. 3 had like all these like fucking shitty mini games, and they'll be like, all right, we're gonna pull this big rock out of the ocean. Make sure you're alternating between X and circle, and then press back when I raise my arms. And you're like, okay, X circle, and they'll blow the whistle and be like, whoa, you did it incorrectly. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? I'm literally doing what you're telling me to do. Like, there were so many times I just about fucking rage quit Breath of Fire 3, and it was all the then there's not even a whole bunch. There's like maybe 6 points in the game, but you need to do those mini games in order to progress the story. It's not even like side content. Yeah, and it's just like they're shit. They're made so badly.
Even in Rebirth, if you are doing the Queen's Blood, like, because part of the main story is you're on the boat from Junon to Costa del Sol,
right? Yeah,
and there's a Queen's Blood tournament on the ship.
Okay,
you can skip the tournament. But trust me, it's totally worth it to do it, because there's a scene in the tournament.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Fucking awesome.
I heard about that.
But yeah,
I hate when it's like, and like even like how I said, like there wasn't a single side quest in Final Fantasy VII that I didn't like, but they all worked at least. Whereas with Breath of Fire 3, none of maybe 2 out of the 6 actually work the way they're supposed to, and it's so frustrating. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to just make a side quest function the way the game's telling you to make it function. Also, Xenogears had some fucking real bad side quests too. They had this shitty blackjack or solitaire game where you're walking on these cards, and it was fucking terrible. And then there was the battling, I think it was called, and it's mech battling in an arena, but it doesn't control anything like the rest of the game, and it's super fucking slippery. And the only way I could figure out to win is you shoot a guy at range and knock the guy down, and then you get up really close, and then every time he tries to stand up, you just kick him so he falls over again. You just keep doing that.
It's funny because
so shitty.
It reminds me of the race in Super Mario RPG with Yoshi. I could never do that in the original version of the game, but the remake I beat it first try.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's because the mechanic is so weird. I've never been able to figure out the mechanic in the original, and I don't know if they changed it for the remake, but I was able to get it much easier. Probably.
Dude, speaking of weird fucking mechanics for minigames, there was one minigame that I did hate in Chrono Trigger, and that's Racing Johnny.
Oh, because it's completely fucking
random unless you like bump in front of him right before the finish line. Like it's like, here's all your turbo boosts, but it's like there's no fucking point in using him because
yeah.
you're constantly like I don't know how to show on the camera. You're constantly like this the whole time. And it's just like you're constantly in front, behind the whole race. And then it's like if you use your boost, you'll just go like this and then go back behind right away. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it was fucking terrible.
Yeah, I didn't like that mini game either.
It was shit. It was the only bad one in that whole game, though. So you can't like dock the game too much for that.
Yeah, no shit.
Fishing in a lot of the Zelda games is really good. But yeah, that's what are some of your favorite super bosses? Because I kind of said like Final Fantasy does the best with it. Like I really like Omega Weapon. I like Ruby Weapon would probably be my number one. Either Ruby Weapon, like the Time Worm from Dragon Quest XI is really good to the point where I've never even beaten it. But yeah, probably Time Worm and Ruby Weapon are my favorite super bosses of all time.
So I'd say my favorite super boss, I think it'd have to be Millennia from fucking Elden Ring, dude. Like, it's either Millennia or it's Nameless King from Dark Souls 3. Like, it has to be one of those two because ever since I started playing those games, the challenge has been a big part of it for me now. And
so like a super boss in a game that's already filled with difficult boss fights.
Right. And then you have to fight Millennia and Nameless King. Like, I would say it's between those two. I like Nameless King because of the lore behind him, but I also like the lore behind Millennia. And I think with FromSoft games, the reason why their super bosses feel that way is because of the setup of them. Whereas, like, this whole, like, Millennia was the big thing in the trailer for Elden Ring, right? Like, advertised, you're thinking, like, Millennia is going to be this fucking super hard boss in the story, like, it's going to be this whole thing, and then you find out that, like,
she's not even part of the story.
She's not even part of the story, technically. Like, she is, but she's not.
Yeah.
She does not appear in the story. She's talked about, but she never appears in the story. Well, then you get the medallion that takes you to a secret area in the map, and then you have to get all the way to her and fight her. And, like, From Software is notorious for their boss runs, like, back to the boss. Hers is super easy because they put a checkpoint right outside of her boss room.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean, though. Like, you go back to the fucking, like, bonfire and you gotta walk all the way there and try and get there without taking damage.
Right. And she is so awesome. Like, she's a 2-phase boss fight. And the funny part is you can open the second phase and die immediately if you don't time her attack right. And it's not like super tight timing, but it's you basically run straight at her whenever phase 2 opens up, and you basically kind of run under her as she flies towards you, and then her attack won't hit you. But it's funny because, like, so many of my runs ended before I figured that out.
Well, your instinct would not be to dodge, like, go through towards them,
right? And that's what had me, like, on the ropes with the Bloodstarved Beast and Bloodborne, because that game, it wants you to dodge into his attacks. And I was so busy trying to dodge away from them that it completely had taken everything I'd learned about the Souls games
and flipped it on its head.
And flipped it on its head, and I had to, like, dive into his attacks. Same with Millennia. Like, you cannot run away from her. You have to go at her. And they also build that into the fight because, like, with her, she stun locks easy. But if you don't stun her, she's going to fuck your shit up.
Right.
And so, like, strength builds are really good against her because they stun her. You need to be aggressive with her. And usually, like, in those games, aggression is awarded with fucking death. And so it kind of changes how you think about boss fights. And I like it because it takes everything, every strategy I'd ever had, and made me throw it out the window and go after her in different ways than I would any other boss. And especially with her healing
Right, when
ability,
she hits, yeah.
yeah, it makes you need to stun her or she's gonna fuck you up.
And you'll be refighting her basically from
Yeah,
scratch.
basically with lower
Yeah.
health than you had.
Yeah.
Um,
Dude, I like when you're playing through a game and the bosses need the bosses make you have to use like separate strategies. So like I like when there's some bosses where it's like you have to play defensively because if I die, I can't beat the boss obviously if I'm dead, right? So you have to do like little pot shots and then play defensive and then little pot shots when there's openings. But I also love boss fights where it's like you have to be aggressive as fuck to in order to win. Like I like when games have like both. And I
mhm.
also like when especially like action platformers, like 2D action platformers, when a boss will change its patterns once it's like at a certain part of its health. I love that shit where you have to like because you'll like memorize the patterns because you've died a couple times to that boss. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I can get this guy now. And then you have him, and then all of a sudden he's like either stronger or faster, or he's changing his patterns up, or just the way he's fighting changes once his health bar gets past a certain point. And you're like, holy fuck, I gotta learn this guy like twice somehow.
That's how
I,
a lot of From Software bosses are.
yeah, yeah. But I like it in like 2D, like when Mega Man games do it and Castlevania games and stuff like that.
Well, it slows down on the tedious bullshit. Like
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
have to employ the same strategy the entire fight, it makes it a little bit
Boring.
yeah, it makes it a
Yeah.
little bit like there's no.
Especially if the boss is a bit of a like HP sink, you know what I
Well,
mean?
especially if the same strategy applies to every single
Every
boss.
boss, that's when it sucks. And I think that's why I love the Mega Man games so much because every boss is literally designed to be completely different from one another, right?
Right.
So you always have to have like a slightly different approach. There's always like there's sneaky shit you can do with some of them, like Airman, you can sneak but like behind him if you time your shit right, and you can just like light him up from behind. Um, like there's so many like little strategies for all of them, and then there's so many different ways to play through those games too. You can go buster only where you don't use any of the special weapons that you gain
Mhm.
throughout the game. And yeah, it's
Kind of like challenge runs.
yeah, and not even like it's just some people just play that way. Like my buddy Kame never uses the special weapons in the entire game, and I never use them in the levels. I don't know what it is. I think that's my whole like hatred of mages too. Like I don't like using something that can consume like a bar or a stat
Yeah.
because then when I get to the boss, maybe I'll need that spell or I'll need that magic or I'll need that special weapon, right? So to me, I'm not going to use like, for example, I think it's Airman's weapon or Tornado Man's in Mega Man 9. But if you use it, it literally like all these little tornadoes come from the bottom of the screen and blow all the enemies away. So you can just clear the whole screen of enemies. But, like, what if I get to the boss and I need that, and I've used that, like, 3 times, and I only have, like, 4 more uses of it now for the boss fight? Like, so I never, ever use the special weapons in Mega Man games, and it's funny because Mega Man's also, like, a series that I played a lot as a kid and played a lot kind of as an adult, but I've never really watched other people play because that was back in like the NES days, right? And like Super NES days. You didn't really, you mostly didn't go over to a friend's place and watch each other play single player games, right? You'd play like 2-player co-op games or something like that, right? Um, so I never really watched other people play Mega Man games. So it never even passed my mind that could use the special weapons in the regular stages. It wasn't until like I started watching Twitch and stuff, and I was like, oh, people use the special weapons at the levels, and like it's like super common. Like some people like just do that, and like to me, that's like something that I've never done or never ever thought about ever doing because again, I don't want to use it and then I can't use it. I don't want to use it up and then I can't use it in the boss fight or something, right?
Right.
But yeah, stuff like that. I just love like variety in bosses and stuff. And then I guess our last kind of topic was post games, like post game content. What do you think of post game content? When do you think it's done good, and when do you think it's a detriment to the game?
So I don't think post game content is ever necessarily a detriment to the game, because I feel like once you've beaten the actual game,
Everything else is gravy.
well, it's not even that. It's like once you've finished the game, you've kind of already set the expectation that you're done with the game,
Yeah.
and you can kind of like choose to do post game content or not. So I feel like it's something that's optional with post game content. Like, it doesn't necessarily become a detriment to the game itself, because, like I said, the main portion of the game that you may or may not have liked is already complete, right?
Yeah.
So it
Or
doesn't
is
really, it doesn't really, there's no post game I can think of that was a detriment to the base game.
So a lot of people think that the post game of Dragon Quest 11 was a detriment to Dragon Quest 11
Really?
because the credits roll and you literally have an extra third of the game to play, and it's literally the rest of the main story, but they put it after a set of credits. And
I could see that.
yeah, and like it's good. I really like it, but a lot of people see those credits and turn the game off, and it's like, dude, you've only played 2/3 of the story. And like, I don't know why they did that. I think yeah, I don't know why they did that, but it's I love it. I love that they did it because the ending you get after that is like probably the fucking greatest video game ending of all time. But there's also like there's like a part in the third act where it kind of like retcons a lot of what happens in the second act, and a lot of people don't like that either.
Yeah.
But to me, I really like it. I think it's really well done, and I think it's cool that they do that, and it explores a lot more like the game and its connections to the other games. But I would say that is a case where you could argue it would be a detriment because that's literally the rest of the story, even though it's considered post game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that being an issue. I don't know. There's not.
There was
I
apparently I think it was like either a Tales game or one of the Legend of Heroes games apparently does that too. Somebody was saying in my chat that you get the credits and then you're like basically halfway through the game.
I
And
don't
it's like,
remember. I don't think one did that, but I could be wrong.
yeah, I don't know if they said it was a Tales game or if it was like a Legend of Heroes or one of
Yeah.
those games.
Well, I know Trails of Cold Steel. I've played that, and I don't think that they did that, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
It's been a while since I played that.
Yeah, that's a series I really want to get into, but of course I'll be starting on the TurboGrafx 16 with the first ever Legend of Heroes game.
It's pretty good. Trails of Cold Steel is. They're very interconnected worlds. Not
All of them?
necessarily. I know Trails of the Sky and Trails of Cold Steel are connected, but I don't
Oh, okay.
remember.
So I bet they all will be.
I don't remember which all games are connected. But yeah, post game content. I would say.
I like dungeons. I like
Final
when like a
Fantasy
dungeon
X
opens up.
kind of has good post game.
What was Final Fantasy X's post game?
The Dark Aeons.
Oh, see, I did, dude. When it comes to like super bosses, I think those are like the lamest because it's just literally like I don't know. It's
You're
like this.
rehashing boss fights.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I hate that. I hate when guys do that. And I know you get who is it, penance or some shit at the end of it. So like there is kind of like a super boss at the end of the road.
There's the monster arena too.
Yeah, I didn't like the monster arena in that because you had to like fight them to collect them kind of thing, and then you go back and like fight them again in the arena. Final Fantasy 9 had like a kind of good monster arena. Final Fantasy 9 also had like really weird side quests. Like it had this Stelazio thing where you'd like get those like, I don't know, like Capricorn, Sagittarius. You have received cancer. Remember that one where it's
Yeah.
like you pick it up. It's like uh, but and then the there's the, what is it, like the coffee side quest where you get like all the different coffee from the different regions and stuff. There's so many like weird side quests in 9 that like really like don't amount to anything but are still kind of cool to do.
A lot of the games that I do, like, I guess what you would call post-game content, is kind of stuff that you do before you finish it.
Right.
It's like, okay, From Software's like that. We're like, yes, I can go and do the Millennia stuff after I've beaten the Elden Beast, but I feel like sometimes those bosses are meant to be fought before you do that.
Yeah.
Because once you beat the game, it doesn't necessarily lock you into the ending. Like it does.
Yeah. Some games do. And some games don't.
Like you see the ending, it takes you back to Round Table Hold, and then you can go and you can still do the Millennia stuff. So it doesn't lock you into that, but it feels like they want you to do it before you finish the game.
Yeah.
You just don't necessarily have to. So post-game for FromSoft games is mostly like New Game Plus, where the game becomes harder, but you can
was Chrono Trigger the first game to do New Game Plus?
I think it was.
I think it was too.
But I don't remember.
It was like one of the only games back then that I remember having it.
Yeah.
And I remember it being like awesome as fuck. And they did it so well because depending on when you fight Lavos, like it determines your ending.
Yeah.
And because of New Game Plus, it just adds like so many more possible endings to the game.
Well, it's like in order to get the platinum for pretty much every From Software game, you have to play it multiple times to get multiple endings.
Well, because you need like different builds and stuff too, probably, right?
No, not necessarily. Most of the completionist stuff for Souls games or SoulsBorne series are like collecting stuff, like legendary weapons or armor or whatever, defeating certain bosses, collecting like, I don't know, summons or something. I don't know.
Right.
But so
I do hate when a platinum takes more than one playthrough. Like, I feel like, to me, you should be able to, when you're like right before the final boss, I feel like you should be able to clean everything up and get that platinum. You know what I mean? Like, there shouldn't be stuff that's like missable. But then at the same time, I do appreciate when games are like, if you have a choice at some point in the game, it changes like the rest of the game. I like that too, but as far as trophies, I don't like it when it comes to trophies.
Right. Yeah. See, what I do, and I'm sure I'm going to catch flack for this, anybody listening that's a Souls fan game, or Soulsborne fan, I save scum quite a bit.
Because then you can go back and...
you can save, and then copy your save to the cloud, then do an option, then download the save from the cloud again, do the next option, download the save,
and then
do
you
it again,
the trophy for
and then you get the trophy for all 3 or 4 endings without having to play it 9 fucking times. Because I think the minimum amount of times you can play Dark Souls 1 to get the platinum is 2.5.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, Bloodborne, I only had to play through it once.
You're only allowed one save file for those games?
What was that?
Are you only allowed one save file for those games?
No. I think Elden Ring you have multiple save files. I don't remember. Okay. I'd have to look. But I think I know Elden Ring you can have multiple characters. But I don't know about the Souls games. I feel like you can, but I don't remember.
What are your thoughts on multiple endings? Do you like when a game has multiple endings? I don't, personally.
I like when a game has multiple endings, but I also want I guess, canon ending.
Yeah. That's been a big thing.
If it's gonna be a sequel, like if it's gonna have a sequel, I
Yeah,
want
it
there to
has to
be
have a
a specific
canonical
canon ending.
ending. But then, like, I hate so I always get like flack because I never played like the Persona games and stuff like that, or like the SMT games in general. But like, I don't like mazes, and those games are very, very mazy. The Persona games I know have like that whole dating sim thing going on where you have to like do weird, like talk to people and make friends and do all that weird shit. But another thing that really holds me back from playing those is apparently unless you do like specific things in your playthrough, you won't get the good ending. Like there's only like one canonical ending out of like 4 or 5 endings. I really don't like that like in games.
So having played Persona 5 Royal, the ending choices usually are specifically at the end. I'm trying to think. There is a way to get a bad ending, but I don't think it's necessarily something that you would accidentally do.
Okay.
Like maybe you make a dialogue choice at the very end that causes it, but for Royal, the final ending is a choice. You can either choose to fight the boss and get an ending that you've been working towards, or you can choose not to fight the boss and you get like the quote unquote bad ending.
Right.
I think that's kind of mostly how Persona games work. I don't remember exactly.
So it's not like you have to fucking do this fucking side quest in order to trigger the actual proper ending or anything like that.
No, so like Royal you do have to complete 3 social links that are very specific social links, but they're easy to complete. Like they're not.
Yeah, but I don't want to be opening a guide when I'm playing through these games.
You don't have to. I didn't use a guide.
Oh.
You just have to remember that at every opportunity, those 3 characters are the ones you want to do. Like you want those social links for those characters. So anytime they pop up, you do them.
Yeah. I think the only time that gets a pass for me is like I don't mind like joke endings. If there's 2 endings and one of them's a joke ending, like it's kind of funny. But I prefer like the joke ending to be like you had to have like basically beat the game and then you can like find a way to do the stupid joke ending. But then sometimes the joke ending pisses me off because I think it Silent Hill 4, there was like a UFO ending and that was the only ending I ever got. And it's like, how the fuck is this the end? This is like this dark fucking scary ass game about like a fucking murderer who's like fucking tortured as a kid and stuff and like your guy's like it's all fucked. And the ending is this little UFO like flying around and shit. Like I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I remember like looking it up and they're like, oh yeah, no, that you got the UFO ending. It's like, how the fuck did I get the UFO ending, dude? And I was like, because I didn't know, like that was the first Silent Hill game I had completed. So I didn't know there were like multiple endings. So I was like, what the fuck is this ending, dude? Like it's so weird. Like
Chrono Trigger has like what, 26 endings?
yeah, some of them are funny too. Like there's one where like Marl's like a pig or not a pig, a frog. Like the whole fucking village is frogs because I think if you is it if you don't rescue Marl or something, or if you beat Lavos right after rescuing Marl or something,
Yeah.
when she first meets Frog, then Marl's like ancestor basically bangs Frog, and then so her whole lineage is like
well,
frogs.
if you do the character specific side quest, you also get different endings too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
one where Luca's mom lives, one where she doesn't, or
Yeah,
whatever.
the Luca's mom live. You have to do that one. That's
Or
just like
it's not that she dies; it's that she's crippled or something like that.
yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Because she gets sucked into that side quest. And it's one like I just can't bring myself to fail. Like I'll just
yeah,
reload my save. I can't do it,
yeah.
man.
Same.
And it's like a little mini game you have to do to
Yeah,
prevent her from getting hurt or die or whatever. And it's like I can't bring myself to fail that. I think that's a fucking sign of a good side quest is if you can't bring yourself to fail it.
Yeah.
Like you know it has that much.
I think
meaning
it's
to
also
you.
interesting that you have side quests that have multiple outcomes too.
Yeah, that's cool too. Yeah. Because that doesn't happen very often either.
No, it doesn't. Usually it's a very set path.
Yeah. As far as like post game, I like probably my favorite thing to do for post game is when like a dungeon appears after you've beaten the game. And then there's like just a big dungeon with some sweet loot, sweet gear, and then like maybe one or two really good boss fights. Like I liked the original Final Fantasy 15 when there's that spot you have to like land the regalia in and do that dungeon. I really like that dungeon.
Is
Um
that the one that's on the top of the mountain or the volcano or whatever?
It's like no, it's like surrounded by like mountains and stuff. Like you can't get there until you get the flying
Oh,
regalia.
okay.
That's another side quest that was good. That
Wait,
was
was that the Piteos dungeon or whatever?
I think that might have been what it was called. Yeah. That's another weird like side quest is that you had to get like those flying parts for the regalia in the post game. I thought it was like a missed opportunity to not have that before you beat the game. Because, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the flying regalia is, like, a pretty big deal once you get it.
God, I fucking hated it though because I crashed that thing all the
I know,
fucking
but that was,
time.
like, the best part was, like,
Yeah.
doing the dumbest fucking crashes. Like, you just land, like, a little bit off the road, and you, like, swerve into a boulder and explode. And the best part is, like, the game has, like, that auto character talk always going on. So sometimes Prompt will be like, "Man, I could go for a nap," and it's like they're already crashed into a boulder and on
Yeah.
fire, and he's like saying we should get some pictures taken or something. I love shit like that, man.
I think a lot of games now are doing post game content where it's like it's just new game plus basically.
Yeah, I don't know if I like New Game Plus as much as I did when I was a kid, though. When I was a kid, I loved New Game Plus, but now it's like I'm like, if all I get is New Game Plus, I'm like, oh really? Like I just played the game though. You know what I mean?
See, I
Like it,
like it in FromSoft games because I can take my build and if there's like an item I missed or maybe a boss that beat my ass, I can go back and yes, the bosses are harder
yeah, but not
in New
enough of
Game
that.
Plus, but if I have like my great sword and I didn't have that when I fought like Margit, I go back and I fought Margit and I just beat the fuck out of him, which is
Yeah,
kind of fun when you are able to beat the fuck out of a boss that destroyed you.
yeah.
So that's kind of fun. But otherwise, like sometimes I find New Game Plus to be kind of boring.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
so for Final Fantasy 16, I loved that game the first time I played it, but to beat it or like to get the platinum, you have to do basically what is New Game Plus on Final Fantasy mode, which is the hard mode.
Okay, and do you not unlock that until you've already beaten it?
Right, you don't unlock it until you
Okay.
beat the game. So
See,
you
I don't like unlockable hard modes. I
right.
wish like they should all be available at the start, I think, if
Rebirth
you
did
want to
it,
play
but
that.
I understand why Rebirth does it because it takes out items.
Yeah, it did like a different aspect
Yeah, it
other than just
changes the
making
way the
the
game
enemies.
fundamentally plays,
Yeah.
as opposed to 16, which just made the game harder. Um,
But even
but
like Metal Gear Solid, I used to play Metal Gear Solid 3 on European Extreme. And you have to like beat the game on like hard mode or something, and then beat it on the next hard mode, I think, to even unlock European Extreme. And then European Extreme, if you I don't remember if it's caution or warning, but you get a game over anytime you're like spotted, it's just game over. And I beat it on that, but like to me, you shouldn't have to unlock that. You should be able to, if you really want your first playthrough to be an absolute miserable mess,
yeah,
you should have that choice, right?
yeah, Rebirth also changes like enemies and side quests. I think because there's one Flowers on the Hill I think is a lesser enemy in the base mode, and then in hard mode it's a harder enemy.
Oh, it changes the
But
enemy and everything even?
16 did that too, where enemy placements were different, enemies types were different in certain areas of like dungeons and stuff. And to me, it was a 50-hour game that's combat only really lasted for 20 hours. and to have to replay that again, even though you can skip cutscenes,
Yeah.
it just, I didn't vibe with it, and I think
Yeah.
it kind of tarnished my opinion on the game.
Yeah.
Because it took a combat system that I already felt overstayed its welcome in the first
Yeah.
playthrough and made me play through it again with the same exact stuff.
Play style and everything.
And so, I don't know, I just really didn't vibe with it the second time through.
I don't think hack and slash games should ever be more than like 15 hours. Because, and this is coming from a guy that will literally do the third combo that you learn in the game for the entire rest of the game.
It depends on the game. Rebirth did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
The combat system constantly improves.
Well, Rebirth, you also have different characters that have different play styles that you can
Right.
swap between and keep it a little bit more fresh, right?
Right.
But most hack and slash games, you're just playing as like one dude. Sometimes you get like a different weapon type that changes up the play style a bit. But when you're as bad as them at I am, you usually find whatever combo you can consistently do with like one of the first fucking weapon types and stick with it.
That's why I like the God of War games, because I feel like they last.
Yeah, you
they
get
last
different weapons.
Well, and they last the right amount of time.
Yeah, they don't overstay their welcome.
Right.
At least the classics. I've never played the new ones.
The new ones are really good.
Yeah.
But like, post-game content's hard to talk about because I feel like games have them, but anymore they're starting to get, like I said, New Game Plus is basically just the post-game.
I liked so Dragon Quest 11 had the Tickington side quests. And like they're technically not post game, but like you get like these little kind of pieces of the side quest that lets you get access to past Dragon Quest worlds and stuff. And basically there's like somebody's interfering with the timeline, and so you have to go into all these different segments of previous Dragon Quest games and kind of write what happens in the story, like correct it. And it's really good, but you keep getting interrupted because you'll be like, oh, we don't have that piece to continue that story. So I always wait to do them until like after I pretty much like beat the game, like at the end of the game, because then I can just do them all one after another in order. Right. So it is a side quest technically, but I always treat it more like post game. And it's awesome because you get to go to like Dragon Quest 2, where like Dragon Quest 1, you're supposed to go to like Garing's grave, because in Dragon Quest 1 you go to Garing's grave to like grab, I think, his harp or something like that. And you go there and you're like, wow, the hero can't go to Garing's grave because there's fucking monsters blocking it. These guys are not supposed to be here. So you beat them up so that when the hero comes through from Dragon Quest 1, he can make it to Garing's grave. Like, it's just little stuff like that. Like, you kind of like, this isn't what was supposed to happen in the story, so you have to like fuck up whoever's changing the story so that the story can happen the way it was supposed to happen. And then the best one was the worst character in all of Dragon Quest is the Prince of Canik, and he's just fucking useless. And the beginning of Dragon Quest 2, that's the game he's in. The beginning of Dragon Quest 2, you're like, okay, we got to gather up my cousins because they're all descendants of Erdrick so that we can beat the big bad, right? And the first character you're supposed to get is the Prince of Canik. So you go to Canik, and they're like, oh, he set off for the well because there's the heroes. I think it's called like the heroes well or something, or the hero's spring. And basically, when a warrior goes off to battle, they make like a wish at the hero's spring. So you're like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Sounds like a good dude. I'll go meet him at the hero spring. So you go to the hero spring, and he's not there. So then you're like, fuck. So then you go back to the castle, and he's not there. So you're like, fuck. So they're like, oh, I think he went to your castle to go get you. And you're like, fuck. So you go to your castle, and they're like, oh, you just missed him. He's not here. So you go back to fucking Canik, and then he's like not there. You go to the town south, and he's like hanging out at the fucking hotel. But anyways, they take that, and then for the Tickington side quest, the Prince of Canik he literally like Looney Tunes stumbles into different Dragon Quest games, and you have to like try and like find him like in the other Dragon Quest games, and they did that really well because it was like a reference to how like how much of a bumbling idiot he is in like Dragon Quest 2,
Yeah.
and how you have to like go from fucking town to town chasing after this guy's fucking ass because he's like can't sit still. And the fact that he's like doing it, but like crossing into all these different like timelines and stuff, they did a really good job with him. That's like the only time the Prince of Kanik ever shines in the entire franchise.
Yeah, that sounds like it would make sense.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. So Royal Persona 5 Royal, the DLC, or I guess the Royal content, is basically post game because it takes place after the main story is complete. And it's really, really well done. I don't normally like when a dead character comes back from the dead. Royal does it in a really cool way.
Oh, okay.
So I really enjoy it. It's kind of a moral question. Like, it asks you what's better, like, to live in reality, or if given the choice, would you live in a world where reality is where everything that you love or want or whatever is there forever with you?
Right.
And it's basically like, do you live in reality or do you create a reality where you're never sad or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you don't feel the human experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And it kind of gives you that moral question. And that's part of like not doing the final boss fight. Like, if you choose not to do the final boss fight, reality changes.
Mm.
And if you choose to do the boss fight, reality changes.
Oh, okay.
But the outcomes are different. It's really, really good, though. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I know. I need to play those. I think I'll do the I'll get to that Legend of Heroes series first, just because it's more like traditional turn-based, from what I understand. But
Persona's
like,
traditional turn-based.
I know, but the dungeons are fucking mazy as fuck. And keep in mind, I'll have to play Persona 1. So I'm waiting for that to get remade before I don't think about playing Persona.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I'm gonna have to wait until it's like remade or something.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, unless you have something else to add, I think that should be about it.
Yeah. So tell us in the comments, what are your favorite side quests? What kind of side quests do you prefer? Same with minigames. What are some of your guys' favorite minigames? What do you guys like for post-game content? And do you like multiple different endings? Why and why not?
Yeah, for sure. Let us know the answers to all of those.
And more.
And more.
Make up questions and answer them in the comments.
Post questions and then answer them yourself. Ask us questions. Fuck. But anyway, guys, this has been episode 17, where we talked about side quests, mini games, and post-game content. This has been The Gaming Effect. I'm your co-host, Alex, aka Soldier First Class.
And I'm Corey, aka Dookie03.
And this has been The Gaming Effect, episode 17. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to like, rate, share on all of the platforms in question.
Do all the things.
Yeah, do all the things. Spotify, iTunes, and my YouTube channel. And share on Twitter, Facebook. Shout it from the mountaintops. Get the word out there about The Gaming Effect. So, thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.